You're listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a podcast dedicated to solving the billing issues and gridlock facing the healthcare industry, presented by ProChant, hosted by Chuck Ellis and Rachel Schools.
Hey there, folks. Chuck here. I am really excited because we are joined today. First of all, we being me and my co-host Rachel Schools. Rachel, how are you today?
I'm amazing, Chuck. Thank you.
Awesome.
How are you?
I am doing well. I am doing as well as I can. But we are joined today on a kind of topical episode. Jon Love and I just got back from the National Association of Specialty Pharmacies Conference, or NASP, over in Orlando, Florida. And Jon, I appreciate you joining us today. We're just going to kind of talk about your experience there. But first, before we do that, let's tell the folks really quick what your background is in Infusion Pharmacy.
I lead the pharmacy services division for ProChant, which is Infusion Pharmacy, specialty pharmacy, specialty infusion centers, everything pharmacy. So I lead that group. So I've been in this space for about a decade or so, in everything from technology to rev cycle to services, strategy, everything of that nature.
So you've been in this circle a bit. And one of the things that I really took away, because this was my first NASP conference, was just how connected it is. It really feels like a small world when it comes to infusion pharmacies, as far as people knowing people, and you're always saying hi to some familiar face walking by.
Yeah, it's definitely a small, specialty pharmacy is very different. There was a time 5-10 years ago where specialty pharmacy was what we called lick 'em and stick 'em. And what that means is it was a mail order. So it was all oral drugs. It was all really, really expensive, acute disease, oral pills that you licked the envelope, stuck it with a stamp, and you mailed it out every month. And so that was old school specialty pharmacy. They were drugs that you didn't get in a retail. You can't get it at your local mom and pop or your big chain or Walgreens or one of those. Specialty pharmacy continues to evolve, and it evolves as they go into long, big acute pharmacy spaces like specialty infusion. Some drugs are now starting to have to have major medical instead of PBM pharmacy billing. And so all of that is, like every industry as it evolves, one that now you're starting to see infusion spaces there, or faces there. You're starting to see specialty pharmacy faces there, and NHIA was there. So National Home Infusion Association was there, because a lot of these groups, they're no longer doing one single type of pharmacy. They have patients and doctors who want all of the pharmacy. Hey, I need people who need oral drugs, but I need people who need infused drugs. And I need to send to AIC clinics to get infused because there needs to be a doctor on site. And all of those things are getting wrapped up into one big pharmacy type. That's what we're seeing. So when we walk around there and we see a lot of different faces, it's because these worlds are expanding and we're starting to bring in people who were previously on outside borders.
And it's interesting because, like you said, like this is all happening very quickly. And we were just talking with our colleague Tina about how quickly the tech is changing and how there's still a lot of folks in this industry that are still very much doing things, partying literally like it's 1999 and doing things on paper.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you experienced when you were conversing with folks at NASP? What are some of the big trends that were hot topics at this show?
I think every time you come to NASP or another similar specialty conference, a large portion of it's clinical, as it should be. It is healthcare at its, The problem is to be able to do great clinical work and actually treat patients, heal patients, there's all of this machine that has to be behind it. We have to fund it. We have to be compliant. We have to organize it. And so a lot of that is what we end up talking about a lot is pharmacies are struggling, staying compliant. There's so many compliance measures to be in business. They're struggling to fund. They're struggling to get paid. Some drugs are on the PBM claims and they really want to do these other drugs, but they're on major medical and they're on an entirely different type of billing. They've never done that. And so now they're like, I want to do the drug, but I don't have anybody in my team who knows how to do that. And it's very complex in nature of trying to create teams that are dynamic, but have very different things to do around the patient. You think about your primary care physician, you would be like, hey, it's not as difficult because the billing is very simple of everything that comes in. And we have this down, and you come in, you make an appointment, we run your insurance, you go in, you see the doctor, and then all that specialist stuff we refer out. So when these pharmacies, they're doing all that. They're doing their regular drugs that you get if you're just a normal person who needs a Z-Pack because you have a cold or something or an infection. But they're also doing the person that needs HIV medicine. They're also doing the person who comes out of a surgery and needs 6 weeks of infusion on an antibiotic. And they're trying to understand all those different roles, and every single one of them has different compliance and different billing and different things. So I would say that most of the conversations are around efficiency, making sure data is clean and sharing it, as you talked about with Tina, like trying to use new technology to help maybe get everybody in the same room. But a lot of conversation is around getting paid. The other part is that payers are more difficult to work with today. And so they're trying to find ways to leverage resources to put more pressure on payers to pay quicker on the things that they have sent out. Remember that on a pharmacy, just like anything else, it's reimbursed. So that $20,000 drug, it's already gone. We haven't been paid on it. So we're in the hole. And so if it takes an extra month to get paid from the payer, that's a month that I'm sitting there with that $20,000 out. And so obviously being paid, not just being paid, but being paid timely is essential to staying in business.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because that was something that I certainly experienced a lot as well, too. First of all, like you said, like it's fascinating to see a show where there's a lot of focus on the logistics and the clinical side. You got all the posters that are about different clinical processes, but there's also booths that are specifically about refrigeration friendly and shelf stable transportation and stuff like that. But then there's all this business intelligence software that's coming up. And it was interesting as people who specialize in the billing side, how much of that is about running the day-to-day, but not so much about this really critical part of the business, which is getting reimbursed for the services rendered that do get out there. And I was even talking with a gentleman from a law firm about how busy he is with clients recently, especially when it comes to these large insurance providers' failure to connect the dots, and the fact that eventually it progresses to the point where there has to be some kind of intervention because the system is getting so convoluted and so difficult for these people who are just trying to run their business. They just flat out don't have the time or the resources to carry that forward or keep that momentum coming. And it almost feels like sometimes that's built into the process purposefully to hope that they just give up. And it behooves them at this point to have a system in place that can help them keep that consistency going, keep on top of stuff so they can get back to running their business and let the technology run stuff. And it's fascinating to me that's still such a foreign concept to some folks in the industry.
No, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to know what you guys did at this convention. Tell me about it.
For me, it was fascinating because I got to sit in on a lot of sessions with folks who run the day-to-day, who are just trying to figure out how to run their businesses better and serve their customers better. So it was interesting for me to see the pain point. And like Jon said, billing came up a lot because a lot of the back office process is centered around not just getting the stuff out there, but making sure that the reimbursement paperwork is filed properly because you got to pay for all of this. And that part feels a lot of folks are falling way behind on that. And so it was something that was coming up a lot in a lot of the sessions that I came to.
We're still coming out. The tail on COVID is very long. And I don't mean that just from obviously supply chains and globalness, but also there are people who this is their first conference since they're back. And it's already fall 22. 2020s were almost all virtual. And then 2021 starting to come back. A couple early ones were canceled. And then so for some folks, if they decided not to go in fall 2021, this is their first one back. So definitely it felt large, it felt good. We had lots and lots of conversations around with vendors. I think that it's interesting as new players come into the marketplace. You're looking at, as I walked around and I'm looking at micro merchants and I'm looking at Keycentrics and the Nobleon and WellSky and Pioneer, and one by one, you're saying, okay, so every year there's a new software player, which I think means that that's what's going to happen in a growing industry. We're going to have the ocean's going to get redder. It's not going to be a blue ocean for software where 2 or 3 just own it all. So I think that's a good thing.
Are there any that were incredibly impressive?
We have to see what happens with a Nobleon. So a Nobleon traditionally has been a system for specialty pharmacies and only like large specialty pharmacies. They often talk about like 60, 70% of specialty drugs go through their system. It's because they have like 6 clients and they're like CVS, massive.
Large ones,
Traditionally, they are a group that had a really nice software that they would completely customize for you to give you exactly what you want. It tends to be very expensive and very nice. They have made the decision to shift their practices up. They're going to continue in that direction, but they've boxed up what they think is a really good specialty system and a really good infusion system. And now they're now coming down into the mid-tier market. And so we're seeing them now start to engage people much smaller than they ever did. And with pricing and onboarding, not as much customization. So it'll be interesting as they come into and leave that super elite. We only have like 7, 8 clients, but they're the biggest in the world to we're going to create a mid-tier class. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out for them as they go to say, you know what, you can't build anything you want, but we built it for you, a lot like the Wells guys had, because that's who they're up against. The Wells guys, the Key Citrix, there's not a lot of customization. They're like, this is our platform. Whereas a Nobleon traditionally have said, this is our platform and we'll kind of build and change it however you want, workflow-wise.
What do these platforms offer, if you can answer that? And what I mean is, let's say that you hired me, John, to do your infusion billing, which is a joke, right? You should never do that.
Yeah.
But let's pretend you did. Would I be able to pop in and hop into a software system that is, let's call it magically intuitive, where I would just be able to process an order and I put in a patient and add an item and it starts telling me what I need to do?
Yeah, it's going to
Are
be
there
soup to nuts.
systems
So
like
it's going to
that?
have a really specialty pharmacy workflow from your prior auths and looking at your funding sources and copay assistances. And so it's going to have this entire workflow that's based on all of those things.
Nice.
And that's going to be the clinical side. And then it's going there, and then it's going to go into billing side, and it's going to have inventory in it. It's going to have everything, soup to nuts. Also, it's going to track shipping a lot of times, where it is and who it's being shipped with, all of those things.
Awesome. John, I know we're at time, but I appreciate the recap. Like I said, it was a really cool educational thing. I could see, with an industry like this, especially with as connected as it is, having that opportunity to be together and be one place and share that knowledge is important. But before we go, if anyone has any questions for you about infusion billing, how can they find you?
Well, you can always get me by going to prochant.com, and you can send an email at Jon L. The John is John, Jon. So JONL at prochant.com. And so you can give me a shout and set up a meeting. And we love to talk through a meeting, 15 to 30 minute call, tell you what we do, tell you how we work with clients, and also give you a chance to work with kind of who we are and what.
Well, again, thank you, John, for your time. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, all the buttons, push them. And if you like this show, please tell a friend or rate us on Apple Podcasts. That really helps get the word out about the show. So again, thank you for listening, watching, wherever you are. Stay safe out there. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a presentation of ProChant, a wholly owned revenue cycle management service dedicated to serving HME, pharmacy, infusion, and other healthcare providers. Learn more about us at prochant.com.